Having a well-developed brain, as most of us do, will undeniably lead us to some kind of resistance when we try to tackle a big project. We are designed for survival, which means that our brains seek comfort. And hard work is discomfort, especially when you picture the daunting task of working long hours in order to succeed on this big project of yours. It will hurt. At least it's what your brain wants you to think. That's why you procrastinate. Because in reality, as soon as you get started, your brain will reward you for every small win along the way. So, our stupid brain is just keeping us from starting. What a moron. Lucky us, there are ways to trick our brain to bypass the resistance. It's called metacognition. The 5-minute rule is a well-known method now popularized by the CEO of Instagram, Kevin Systrom. But this method has its limitations. So instead of just giving you a flow trick, I will show you how this trick is supposed to work, and then we'll see 2 other methods in order to get started and to keep going. The 5-minute rule. If you don't want to do something, make a deal with yourself to do at least 5 minutes of it. The premise of the 5-minute rule is simple. Procrastination happens when the project you want to achieve will probably take hours, days, weeks, or even months to finish. The amount of work is so high, you can't wrap your head around it. You'll never have the intensity of focus you need for that long. You're scared you won't be able to do it. So, to outsmart your brain, you should make it easier. Lower the stakes. What is a smaller, specific task that you can do for just 5 minutes in order to make progress right now on that big goal of yours? That's it. Just make a promise to yourself that you'll work only for 5 minutes on it. And when the timer goes off, you'll stop and do whatever you wanted to do if you had procrastinated in the first place. If your goal is to build a brand new website for your business, just start by brainstorming for 5 minutes to find the tagline that will differentiate your business and hook the visitor to keep him scrolling. Hey Siri, set a timer for 5 minutes.
5 minutes, starting now.
Ding. But I see you coming. Gee, you can't tell me that every big project can be done in 5 minutes increments. How do I do if I need to write a book? There's a twist. I didn't give you the whole quote from Kevin. After 5 minutes, you'll end up doing the whole thing. The trick of telling your brain you're just gonna do 5 minutes is to get you started. But once you've started, you have little wins. First sentence written. Feels good. Can you tell why? Smells like serotonin and dopamine released in your entire body. You can't wait to write the next sentence and the next. And when you hear that 5-minute alarm you set earlier, you're already miles away. 1 second. Hey Siri, can you please shut the fuck up? You're in the zone, in a state of flow, and you want to keep going because your brain doesn't hate hard work. It just doesn't like the idea of it. That's only before you start that there's a fight or flight response. So here it is, a little metacognition trick to get you started. Problem number 1. Alright, I've been there, just 5 minutes. But where do I start? Will I even be able to keep going after 5 minutes? What if I go just 5 minutes on Twitter and then I'll start my 5 minutes? Too late, buddy, you've lost. Overthinking. It all plays out in only 5 seconds. So here's another trick for you. The 5-second rule. I promise, I don't know any 5-hour rules. The 5-second rule is basically a decision-making trick. If you struggle with procrastination, there's often a bad decision-making habit. There are plenty times in a day where you face choices. Should I do this or that? And when you find yourself procrastinating, it's because you made a decision. Often, it's unconscious. But with the 5-second rule, you bring back the awareness in your decision-making process. When you realize you should be working toward your goal and you're doing other things instead, that's when the count starts. 5, 4, you know what you should do. 3, 2, get your ass moving. 1, go! In fact, you always know internally what you should be doing. When you give yourself 5 seconds to act, you bring back the focus. Procrastination is a habit loop. Like every habit, it is coded in your basal ganglia. Feeling, emotions, habits, everything you don't think about happens here, in the back of your head. But when you count backwards to 1, you're interrupting the habit loop. You actually relocate the activity from the back of your brain to the prefrontal cortex. And because you've just made the first decision and decided to take action, it's much easier to take the next one and the next one. Start easy. Tomorrow morning, when your alarm rings off, before snoozing, try counting from 5 to 1. And at 0, jump out of your bed. This starting ritual will help you go from idea to action. You know you can suddenly take action, and everyone can. You're able to suddenly jump into a raging river to save your dog, your child, or your brand new iPhone without thinking about it. And I do mean count backwards, not from 1 to 5, but from 5 to 1. It's a rocket launch. When you land on 0, it's showtime. It triggers courage and acting with confidence. And it forces you to focus. Remember when at school, as the room would get noisy, the teacher would come backwards? At 1, the room went suddenly quiet because everyone's attention was back. Everyone focused. So here's a second method to add to the 5-minute rule. Every time you start overthinking on taking action, use the 5-second rule. Problem number 2. Okay, so with the 5-second rule, you take action. And with the 5-minute rule, you get in the zone. But the whole concept of the 5-minute rule is lying to yourself. You develop 2 layers. The one who tries to believe you'll only do it for 5 minutes, and the one who decided to use this method in the first place, secretly hoping you'll keep going after 5 minutes. On days where your motivation is particularly low, it will be hard to believe this lie. You'll see beyond the 5 minutes. What if I don't keep going after 5 minutes? What's the point? And even if you start working anyway, thanks to the 5-second rule, at the end of the 5 minutes, if you're not in the zone, if you just want to stop now, how would you feel? Disappointed with yourself, right? How will you feel next time you'll use the 5-minute rule? Will you even trust yourself? Okay, it escalated pretty fast. Man, I was just trying to help and now you're having self-trust issues. So how can you use the idea of the 5-minute rule but without lying to yourself? The Pomodoro technique. The whole point of the 5-minute rule is to lower the stakes. You take a project that's gonna take years, months, or weeks of hard work and you make it look like a significantly smaller challenge. Some of you might be familiar with the Pomodoro technique. You have tons of productivity apps that are using this technique. You set the timer for 25 minutes of intense focus, then you take a break for 5 minutes. Then back again. With this technique, you also break down the big challenge in smaller and more attainable goals. And you don't lie to yourself. You really should listen to yourself. Depending on the day, on your energy, on your motivation, 25 minutes might sometimes already be too overwhelming to start with. You can lower it down until you feel that your body is comfortable with the challenge. 25 minutes? Not sure. 20 minutes? Maybe better. 15 minutes? Yeah, sure, I can do that. Quick warning though, the 5-minute break isn't to go on social media, start a Netflix episode while hoping you'll be able to stop it after 5 minutes or anything like that. Use your break to reassess. How was it? How were you feeling during those 25 minutes of work? How many more Pomodoros do you think you can take? Stand up, stretch, breathe deeply, meditate if you want, and get ready for the next Pomodoro. You'll need all the clarity you can get in order to get back in the zone. If you're starting from the ground up and you have no work ethic at all, I suggest this pattern. Begin with the 5-second rule followed by the 5-minute rule. After the 5 minutes, if you're in the zone, set up a Pomodoro timer. And if you're not, take a 5-minute break to breathe, stretch, and assess for the next focus session. Remember that 3 hours of deep focus a day is way more productive than 8 hours of distracted, showing up for the sake of it, but keeping an eye on social media and emails. Hope it helped. See you around and have an awesome day. Peace!